tell us a little bit about yourself.
Right now, I'm actually in college. I'm in university right now, an undergraduate. I'm studying here in the United States at a school called Cornell, where I'm pursuing a business education. I really got interested in music in high school when a friend of mine wanted to make an album talking about our high school experiences. At the time, I had not much music experience. I just learned to sing throughout my life, but I had never actually formally been in a music project. And when I was in that album, I immediately just fell in love with the song creation process. I enjoyed writing lyrics, working with beats and trying to make something that could connect with people. And so after that album was released, I decided that I wanted to take music as sort of like a part-time thing I could work on while I'm at university. And so I started toying around with this new concept of how can I blend my Tamil background with Western hip hop. And I saw that a lot of artists right now are emerging doing this sort of similar trend of mixing those two cultures together. And so I sort of followed some of my inspirational artists, whether it be S.A.M, Pritt, artists that are sort of facilitating this transition. And I started making music similar myself. And that's sort of what led me into Arivu, which was my new album release, which is a culmination of this fusion style of music that integrates Tamil and Western hip hop.
It's really cool to hear you describe your music yourself, because I was going to say before this that fusion is how I would describe it. So obviously you're combining two, some would say polar opposite genres of music. What's the process there? Is there one, or do you kind of just go with, is it a reflection of your own personality? Like, how do you go about it?
When I was a kid, starting from the age of 7 or so, I learned something called Carnatic music. It's a form of Indian classical music. And so all my vocal training was focused on Carnatic music. When I started making music, I was very interested in rap and hip hop. And so naturally, as I was listening to beats, I would sort of feel myself deviating to my Carnatic music background as I was trying to write some more like Western type of lyrics. And so unintentionally, as I was writing, I started to feel like Tamil words and sort of the Tamil style of singing was naturally coming into the way that I wanted to write and sort of process a song. And so the very first single I released, which was Niyam Nan, which was the first fusion song I had ever done. I remember as soon as I heard the beat, suddenly like Tamil lyrics started flowing in my head. And I wanted to combine that with English because I could feel the two blend together very naturally. And so it was one of those moments where it kind of was like an aha moment where I realized that these two things can truly be blended together. A lot of people at first told me like, people are not going to be able to remember the lyrics. It's very different. It may not resonate with people, but I took the chance and did it anyway. Learned a bit from my first two releases. And then with Arivu now, I'm seeing that a lot of people are sort of resonating with that style of music. It's able to attract people that are into Western hip hop, but also people that are into Tamil music. And so it's attracting a wider audience. And so that process was very interesting to learn and understand. But as time progresses, I become better at understanding how to make the two flow more naturally so that even the listener can't even realize sometimes that it's a fusion song. They just think it's any other song.
Arivu as well, obviously that's your first major project, right?
Yeah.
So how was it? Obviously that's quite like a major milestone. What was the process of deciding, okay, these are the tracks that I want to do them in this order, that sort of thing, and like also general themes throughout, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so when I came up with Arivu, there was really two things. First thing was that personally for me, I wanted to create a project where I could sort of take Tamil fusion music to the next level. And when I decided that I wanted to do this album, I was very particular about who I wanted to feature on this album and which artists I wanted to bring on. So some of the big features on this album include S.A.M and Pritt, two artists that are making it very big in the UK right now with their style of music, that both have a Tamil background actually. And then artists like Vinin and Praveen, who are based in Toronto in the US. I chose to work with these four artists as features because they shared that same cultural background as me. And I thought that that would deliver this fusion style more strongly to an audience that's going to be a lot of Tamil people that are listening to this music. So that was really how I chose my features and like the direction of who I wanted on this album. When I think about how I structured this album and the general themes, Arivu is all about, so Arivu translates to knowledge in English. And so Arivu is all about what I learned in the last 4 years of my life. In these 4 years, through different sort of experiences where I made mistakes myself, where I had to understand my mistakes, I had to learn from them to make myself a better person and become a better version of myself. That's what Arivu is all about. It's about understanding those sort of relationships that I had with people that taught me what it's like to make these mistakes, how it makes you sort of feel down and sad, but then how do you get out of it and what do you learn from it? And so I structured the theme of the music to be sort of explaining that narration of 4 years of my life. And when I like, and that's exactly precisely how I ordered it, sort of starting from, relationships to the lessons that I learned in each relationship, and the very final song where I'm sort of kind of bringing everything together and sort of explaining in first person what my experiences were. So that was sort of the theme and structure of the album. And then with artists, like I felt that they were the strongest artists to deliver that sort of image that I wanted to create for this album.
I mean, I was going to ask about the artists, but you've summed it up really well in terms of why obviously you would choose like all of them and are four really great talents. I think it's also testament to the fact that honestly, I feel up until recently, obviously Tamil music has existed. There's been plenty of Tamil talent out there, but I think certainly it's on the rise in terms of being recognized, not only in music, but also in I think all like areas of work. Like it's just becoming a lot more of a representative thing. So how does it feel to sort of be a part of that wave almost?
That's a great question. A huge reason why I'm passionate about music and I keep doing this and I keep coming back to it is because I want to be part of this new trend. I want to be a part of this new sort of mission to bring Tamil music to the forefront of media. And I think like I've seen a lot of artists that I've personally been inspired by who spent so much time, so many years of just putting out music, took a long time to get to where they are, and now they're finally starting to gain that recognition, which is awesome. I think that for me, I really want to sort of, the thing is I live in the school that I go to, there aren't really a lot of, like, I'm not talking to a lot of brown people. Most of the people that listen to my music here are not brown. And that's really interesting to me because when I see people that aren't the same culture as me come to me and tell me that they really like my music and they're listening to it so much and they're enjoying the sound of it, that's when it really tells me that Tamil music is not just for Tamil people, it's for everyone. It's for everyone to enjoy, because as long as the sound is good and as long as the delivery of the song is enjoyable, everyone's going to listen to it, everyone's going to enjoy it. And I think that's what we're seeing in Tamil culture right now. We're seeing a lot of artists sort of capitalizing on these hip hop trends that you're seeing in Western culture, but they're blending that Tamil style into it. And so that's why we're seeing audiences all across the world, whether it's France, Germany, Toronto, all like states in the US. There's so many more artists that are emerging and also a bigger audience that's coming out of it. So I'm really excited to be a part of that trend and hopefully expand my audience as well and connecting with them in that way.
Yeah, I mean, talking about the overall sound of the album, because obviously you've mentioned about the structure of it, why you chose to collaborate with certain artists, but in terms of the way that actually sounds, it is like you say, you've got those Western elements and almost, I'd say, very much futuristic. Like there are moments in it where it's like, okay, these are very like almost intergalactic space sounds sort of thing, and then but then you've got also the traditional flute motifs throughout, and I think that night it really blends together in a way that you wouldn't necessarily expect it to. So yeah, I don't know if there was any sort of what was that intentional, or were you just, I'm just gonna throw myself into this and see what happens?
Yeah, I think so. In the album, when it comes to sounds, as you mentioned, a lot of flute motifs and other sort of traditional instruments you would hear in Tamil music. I think what I was trying to go for with Arivu was to give people a diverse listening experience. I didn't want to sort of make all the tracks sound very similar. What I wanted to do is I wanted to make my album sort of fit different audience groups. And so I understand that my Tamil music is probably going to reach people that are more into traditional Tamil music. And so when I think of tracks like Ase or Sogam, these are songs in the album where it's much more traditional instruments, traditional style that Tamil people are most exposed to. But then when you kind of go a step further and you think about how do you sort of deviate to that, to reaching people that are into this new emerging hip hop trend, that's when we're talking about tracks like Marakade or like Tora. Tora was a track with S.A.M, very different style from what I've created ever before. It's mixing that sort of Latin Afro style of music with Tamil hip hop. So it's a trend, and it's something I think people haven't really even tapped into at all. And that's all this album was about. It's about creating a unique sound for people. When someone listens to my album, I want them to think, oh, wow, this is interesting. I never thought that could be done before. And so I wanted to create something new. And so basically by integrating these genres and languages that people never thought could blend together, I'm sort of creating this unique musical genre and taste that I think will become a trend in the future.
Obviously, you've talked about how the artists featured on this project, you're obviously a big fan of. Apart from them, who would you say your main influences are in general?
There's two artists that I'm influenced by every day. The first being Janssen and the second being Sean Vincent DePaul. These two artists are Tamil artists just like myself, recently signed on to the Maja label, which is one of the biggest labels that's representing Tamil independent artists around the world. When I first started making music or even wanted to make Tamil music, it really came because I would listen to their music and I would think, wow, they're doing something so different. I remember when I first saw their video, they did something called a Mridangam rap freestyle. And so Mridangam is a Tamil instrument. It's kind of like a drum. Think of a tabla where you're kind of hitting it back and forth, and it kind of creates this unique drum pattern. And I saw Janssen playing that, and then I saw Sean Vincent doing a freestyle rap on it. And I was like, oh my God, like, how did they come up with that? And I thought it sounded so great that that's when I sort of had a realization that they're on to something that people haven't realized yet. They're on to figuring out how to blend these two cultures, and they're sort of creating a new trend. They're creating something different. And so to this day, those two artists are the two artists I look up to when I'm thinking about how can I branch out from just being that typical Tamil artist to being someone that's going to change the way the music industry is even shaped in terms of what Tamil music actually looks like and what modern Tamil music looks like. So I say those two artists are very influential for me in terms of the music that I make. And outside of those two artists, there's many artists I sort of look to and I'm thinking, like they're just totally what I want to become, where I want to see myself. One of my cousins, Nilani, she makes music as well, and she built a following on her Instagram, and she's been working super hard, and I've closely seen how she started from the beginning all the way to now, and you can see how much hard work they're putting to get to where they want to be. And so for me, that's what I want to do, right? I want to put that hard work in because I know that nothing rewarding comes unless you actually put the effort into it. And that's how my life has always guided me. My philosophy is always give it 110%. And if you can work harder than other people do, then you'll get to where you want to be faster than everyone else.
Obviously, you're focusing on this new project at the moment, but what have you got planned for the future? Anything, or are you just living in the now?
I think right now, so this album was actually a year in the making. Started it maybe last February, March. And it took a long time to bring it to where it was because a lot of just re-recording and recording again until I could get to how I wanted it to sound. So I will say definitely I don't want to release something like at this moment or maybe in the next month or two, just because, I want people to listen to Arivu. I want Arivu to be the priority just because of how long it took to get to where it is right now. That being said, though, one of the things I did notice from Arivu is that Arivu helped put me sort of it integrated me more with the Tamil independent music scene. So, I'm seeing artists that are reaching out to me now and they're yo, we should do music together. Let's make something. And that's what makes me happy because that's what the whole point of Arivu was. It was to get involved in the music scene. So I wouldn't be surprised if in the next year I'm dropping a lot more music with different artists because I know a lot of artists that I'm interested in collaborating with and a lot of artists that want to collaborate with me as well. And so I'm definitely going to make use of that and try to work with some different artists to put some stuff up in the next year.
Where's the best place to find you on socials?
I would say I'm pretty active on Instagram. So it's just my name, Praveen Gunendran. If you search it up, you'll find it. On public profile. That's where I post all my music updates. So a lot of Arivu updates when even pre-release, when artists were reviewing it, and post-release when I'm posting updates about how it's performing and sort of the insights into the album. That's where you can follow me and sort of show support there. I am also on TikTok where, I'm going to post more videos in the near future to sort of showcase my music a little bit more. But yeah, definitely follow me on Instagram if you're interested. I'm definitely happy to sort of build a new community around my music and really happy to connect with all of you.